Hi, I'm Jeffrey Heil, one of the hosts of the Partial Credit Podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting educational podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to Fresh Air at 5, the podcast. I'm your host, Bryon Carpenter. Fresh Air at 5 is my regular attempt to exercise by walking about my neighborhood, to take in podcast content, then reflect in an unedited video, which I finally post to my Twitter channel. This podcast will be a regular collection of the audio from these selfie videos. You can follow me on Twitter at FreshAirAtFive or check out my website, BryonCarpenter.com, for other content I have created and collected.
Hey, PLN Sunday, June 27, 2021. It's Fresh Air at 5, recording for the first segment of episode 27. I can't believe this is the first segment of episode 27. That means there's been 27 weeks since the beginning of January when episode 1 dropped, and super excited that it's still going. I'm still doing it, and getting up early in the morning. Okay, this morning, I was up late last night, and I got up at 7 o'clock. So yeah, I didn't get up at 5. I should have, because right now on my watch, what's it say? It says that it's currently 29 degrees Celsius, and I'm out for my exercise walk in 29-degree heat. Well, that's the cool of the day right now. Well, I mean, the cool of the day was earlier, but it's supposed to get to 42 degrees today. So we have a plan to sit by a pool and to get some cooling from the water, and that's our plan, to just relax today after this. So this morning, as I'm out walking, I listened to the replay because yesterday when this happened live, I was on my way to a lake because that's one of my passions, to go fishing, and so I missed the live, and I apologize to Fonz and to Tim Cavey, who was his guest on My EdTech Life, and so those two guys are two of my favorite people, and I really appreciate both of them and what they're doing in the podcasting educator space and telling teacher stories and bringing the opportunity for people to tell their stories. Tim, thanks so much for what you're doing. You're doing great, and it's great to hear your journey, and wow, 10 years until retirement. I'm jealous because I think I got longer because I started this thing later in my life, but that's okay. I appreciate, Tim, what you said about curating consistently and getting out there and making content consistently. And you're going to run into jammers and problems as you're doing that, but that builds confidence and competence over time. And that's what I'm seeing even here with my exercise with this podcast, is that it's getting better as I go along. And hopefully it sounds and shows that it's getting better, but I feel better about it. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. Have a fantastic day. Tim, stay cool where you are. Fawn, stay cool too. Bye-bye. One more thing for June 27, 2021. It's coming up to 9:20 in the morning here. Temperature is 30 degrees Celsius, on its way to 42 degrees Celsius today. And it's humid and warm already. And I didn't get out for Fresh Air at 5 earlier. All right, so in my last part of this segment, my walk this morning, I listened to episode 745 of the 10-Minute Teacher podcast with Vicki Davis, and thank you, Vicki, for continuing to produce content that has been out there for a while. And you're at 745 episodes. That's a lot of episodes. You had guest on to Neil Johnson, who is a award-winning science teacher, and she talked about the struggles and challenges of teaching in a hybrid classroom this year, where she had her roomies and zoomies, as she called them, in the same time in the same space, so that she was working with them at the same time. And she said that the quality of the education that she believed she delivered was not the same as normal, and of course it shouldn't be, because we're not in the normal. And you and Vicki talked about the need for some reprise and some relaxation about the state testing and teaching to the competency or the performance standards that are being tested on the state tests. And so that's an important thing to consider as we do move forward here. And I do believe that we need to governments and testing needs to subside so that we can allow our kids to be kids, and we can allow them to deal with the trauma and the stress of this past year and a half of what's been going on with COVID and the pandemic. So thank you, ladies. Appreciate your conversation this morning. I'm going to hang this up. I'm going to go inside and get a big glass of water because it's warm. Hope you're staying cool where you are, and we'll talk to you later. Oh, we're in the middle of a heat wave here in the lower mainland of British Columbia. This doesn't normally happen, but today we're expecting a high of 42 degrees Celsius. All right, have a great day, everyone. Talk to you. Bye-bye. Hey, PLN, it's Monday, June 28th, 2020. And looking at my watch right now, it's 25 degrees Celsius here as I'm out for fresh air at 5 in the cool of the day. You know, it's amazing how you put things in perspective when we've got a heat wave going on. We're expecting 45 degrees Celsius today. The 25 is the cool of the day. So, you know, it's all about perspective. Perspective in many things, right? And what's our perspective on the things that are going on? This morning, I listened to episode 92 of the Staff Room podcast, and the question posed was, have we bridged the equity gap during the pandemic? And there was a rich discussion between Che and Pav with some reference to research and some data that was provided in Ontario and other places. And anecdotally, from my space here, I don't believe that we have bridged the equity gap yet. And it's on its way, and we are making strides in those directions as we had to go a year ago into remote teaching for a little while. That gave us a chance in my space out here in British Columbia to get some technology into the hands of some, and then we saw that in the fall that, you know, we needed to keep that technology in the hands of some and others not, for reasons. But then, you know, I was privileged that we had face-to-face learning all year long in my district here in the Lower Mainland. We were able to, and in British Columbia, we were able to stay in school. Neighboring province, Alberta, and in Calgary, they had shutdowns for a little while during the school year. My niece and nephew were not able to go to school, so there was a challenge that was there. But Shay and Pav, thank you for bringing this to our minds. It's important that we do keep this into our minds as we move forward in the future as educators. We are the practitioners in the classroom. Admin is the one that funds the technology and all the bits that go along with that, but we need to make sure that we have sound arguments for why it needs to stay and be there. Thanks so much. Have a fantastic day, guys. I'm gonna go and find a cool place to hide. Bye. One more thing for June 28th, 2021. Today is a heat wave school closure due to extreme weather. And here in my district, we are not going to school today. School buildings are closed and students are staying home, as well as staff, because of the extreme heat that is coming. If you look behind me there, that's the great ball of fire that is raining down its energy on the earth. And yes, it's hot, super hot. Right now, I don't know, it's probably 26 degrees Celsius, and it's just before 6 o'clock in the morning. So we're expecting 45 degrees today. So today I will be working from home. My daughters will not be going to school. They are not expected to attend and participate because schools were anticipating this happening. So they get a day off. It's like a snow day, except different, except it's the other end. So wherever you are, stay cool today, stay hydrated, and we'll get through the heat because we can. We just have to be smart about it. All right, that's all. That's my one word, kind of meta thinking about, I don't know, getting through in a metaphorical way. And we've been in the heat. We've been in the stress and all the challenge that's gone on this past year with the pandemic. And we're on this side of it now. So some of us are a little more toasted than others. So take time in the summer to get some rest for yourself, get some hydration, get some learning on so that you can come back in the fall stronger than you were when you left. All right. Thanks so much. Have a good day. Okay, bye. Morning, PLN. It is Tuesday, June 29th, 2021. And this morning, right now, it's about 24 degrees Celsius out and pretty warm at 5 o'clock in the morning as I'm out for fresh air at 5. Yesterday, we experienced 45 degrees Celsius, 113 Fahrenheit here in Abbotsford and in the lower mainland in southern British Columbia. And this is unprecedented, but I guess why not? It's an unprecedented year. Bring it. I'm not saying that anymore. Okay, we got through the hottest day, and today's high is supposed to be, I think, 34 Celsius, and then tomorrow, like 28. And who's gonna be complaining about being hot after we went through what we went through yesterday? It was quite challenging, to sit in your home and not have air conditioning very much. We have a small air conditioner that could hardly keep up, but the air conditioner actually kept it at, 34 degrees inside the house. So that was quite nice that we actually had some relief. All right, so this morning out for Fresh Air at 5, turned on my podcatcher and I saw Brad Hughes with the Good News Brad Hughes. The Good News, Brad News podcast. And Brad, thanks for bringing episode 23 as you talk with Hedrick Nichols. And she is an educator and she is a consultant and a speaker and an advocate. And I appreciate the conversation that you had with her about anti-racism and awareness. And I like what she had to say about us examining and doing the work ourselves to understand what our bias is, what our upbringing and what our culture that we live in is, and how it impacts who we are as people first, and then as our jobs of whatever our jobs are and how we interact with others. So thank you, Hedrick. I'm going to take a listen to Small Bites in a moment. So thanks for your podcast in advance. We'll talk to you soon. Happy day, everybody. Bye-bye. One more thing for June 29th, 2021. I just recently listened to Hedrick Nichols talk with Brad Hughes on the Good News podcast, as Brad and Hedrick talked about anti-racism, and Hedrick has a podcast called Small Bites, and so thank you, Hedrick, for your podcast. I just listened to a short snippet. Well, it's only short because it's 5 to 7 minutes long, about the titled "I Am a Patriot." And I haven't listened to any of your other work, but I hear from you and your sincerity that you are talking about patriotism and being American and being a black woman in America, and how as a country of America, and I don't live in America, I have relatives that live in America. I live in Canada, just north of the border, so I am influenced by a number of things that happen in the United States because of the proximity I am to the border crossings and travel, and I like to get my fuel in the States because it's cheaper and things like that. But you admonished your listeners to examine the documents and the history behind these significant holidays. July 4th is coming, Independence Day, and I don't have an understanding of all that goes on with Independence Day, but I do know that it's important, and I do know that it's about being American, and that the people need to consider where they're from and how they fit into America if you do live in America. I live in Canada, and Canada Day is July 1st, which is coming up on Thursday. And this year there has been, a whole lot of news come out and about the history of atrocities in our country with the residential schools. And as we as Canadians on Canada Day examine being Canadian, we need to also do the same thing about understanding where we've come from, what it means to be Canadian, and making sure that we move forward in a democratic and polite way. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Hey, PLN, Wednesday, June 30th, 2021. Today is my last official day of school, and I am excited that I do not have to attend to work tomorrow. I'm not teaching summer session, and I get tomorrow, as Canada Day, my first full-on day off. But you know, where I live right now, we have just come through a heat wave that started on Friday and peaked on Monday at 45 degrees Celsius. And in doing so, school districts around, because of health and safety, canceled school for Monday and Tuesday, which would have been our students' last days of work, of school, going to school. Now, it's the end of the year. What are students doing on those last 2 days? Are they learning? Yes, we're learning all the time. So we are learning, but are we learning academics? Are we learning things that are going to be on the report card? Or are we working on relationships? And those relationships were affected in a huge way. I teach at a virtual school, and our class time with our students had ended a week prior. So I got to see my students on their last days. But at my daughter's school, they got thrown into heat wave lockdown. They couldn't go to school on Monday and Tuesday, and my daughters were saddened about that. Their teachers are saddened about that they don't get to see their students on those last 2 days. So that's a cost of the heat wave. All right, so I'm going along here thinking about this because I was listening to Science 360 with Tim Stevenson, Astro Stevenson, that came out with a interview that he had with Doug Allen, an economist from Simon Fraser University. And the title of the podcast is the cost or the economic analysis of the COVID lockdown. So I'm going to talk about that in a moment. But first, I have to pause the video because I'm running out of time. One moment. One more thing for June 30th, 2021. As I said I was going to continue my thoughts about the economic analysis of the COVID lockdown, which was a conversation that Tim Stevenson had with economist from Simon Fraser University, Doug Allen, that talked about what did it cost for the lockdown, for the COVID pandemic lockdown that happened in Canada and around the world. And so looking at Canada alone, there's a lot of data and information that goes into that, looking at the benefit of the COVID lockdown and looking at the cost of the COVID lockdown. This is a controversial topic. I challenge you to do what I did this morning and actually listen through all of it. I've got my opinions, but you know what? I don't have research to back up some of those opinions, and this is how I get some of that information, is by listening to learned people talk about these kinds of topics. So Doug Allen has a paper where he has reviewed 80 different academic papers over the past 16 months, and it's an unpublished paper at this point, but is going to be published soon. And he talks about the costs and the benefits of the COVID lockdown. Personally, my cost of the COVID lockdown is that my quality of life changed and my social and emotional well-being was affected for me, this guy. I'm pretty happy typically. Some things that make a difference for me in that is being outside and being outdoors. My wife and friends and we did push and we got outdoors as much as we could this past year. So we had a very active outdoor life. But something that was affected was my fishing and being able to go fishing up to the interior and to the lakes. This year in particular, as we were not allowed to travel about the country or actually about the province beyond our health regions due to COVID and the lockdown that happened this past 2 months. All right, take a listen. Thanks, Tim. Thanks, Doug, for your thoughts, and have a great day, everybody. Bye. Hey, PLN, happy Canada Day here in Canada. It is July 1st, 2021, out here for Fresh Air at 5. Early this morning, I could have slept in, and I did sleep in by, I don't know, half an hour. So it's still early. I got out the door just at 5. So I'm thankful for that. I'm going to go home and do some push-ups and then settle into my day of Canada Day as we pack for a backpacking trip. So I will be off the air tomorrow and the weekend. So I'll have some news for you about how that went on the other side of the weekend. All right, so this is the last segment of episode 27 of Fresh Air at 5. You're listening to it live today on the Daily on Twitter, but it'll be included in the Fresh Air at 5 that will come out next week on July 9th. So, all right. So this morning, I listened to Batsheva Frankel talk to Darcy Bakkegaard about how to get the professional development you want and need. And Darcy is a co-author of the Startup Teacher Playbook, which is about a format and a structure for how to get the professional development that you need and want. And so in this conversation that Darcy has with Batsheva, and thank you so much, Batsheva, for bringing this to the fore, because it's so important that we acknowledge that professional development always is maybe way too professional and less about development. And we go to these sessions and there's information and research, and it's great maybe for some, the presenter, but not necessarily for the one who takes it in. And I get my professional development in a few ways. I go to conferences that I choose to go to. On occasion, I get my professional development by being a presenter at conferences, and I also get it here by listening to podcasts, and then I reflect and synthesize what I've heard so that I can take it to my classroom the next day. I think it's really important that teachers own their learning, and teachers are like, oh, I don't have time for that. Well, I'm like, I don't have time for it either. That's why I get up in the morning and make time for it. Hang on one second. I'll be right back. One more thing for July 1st, 2021, continuing my thoughts about professional development to teachers and getting what they need, as I just listened to Batsheva Frankel talk to Darcy Bakkegaard about getting the Pro-D that you want and need. And it's important that teachers own their learning. We want our students to own their learning, and we do things in our classroom that hopefully inspire them to own what they do so that they can have ownership of their learning. But when we go, because we're forced to go, we have to go sit in that session. I like what you said, Darcy, that you were at that lunch with all those teachers who went to a Pro-D session, and everybody was like all negative, and you're like, okay, people, we have to find a positive in this. I have to take something from this. What can I learn? And that's my mindset as I go to Pro-D. I do my best to find the good in what I'm learning and hearing so that I can take something away. Making Pro-D fun, making it engaging, making it workshop-like. I learned this trick from going to the EdTech team Google Summits, and how I went and was welcomed, and there was enthusiasm and music playing, and we went into keynote sessions and we learned, and it was just wow, engaging and enthusiastic, and like you want to be here. And so they would run theirs on a Friday, which was typically a Pro-D day for some district that they were running it in so that teachers could come from that district. But then it also spilled into Saturday. What was exciting to me is on Saturday, we would see how many teachers would show up. Yeah, maybe they paid for it out of their own pockets, out of their own Pro-D funds, so they would show up. But for me, I would show up because I wanted to be there. I wanted to learn. And the way that workshops were set up, it was like hands-on, try this, fly a drone, build something, learn some coding, do some graphic design. Fantastic. Make it engaging, people. Bye-bye. See you later.
As my one word for 2021 is appreciate, I appreciate you giving me a listen as I've created this podcast experience for you. It's a unique Blinkist or Coles Notes version of the content I take in, like a highlight reel, so that you can hopefully find other interesting podcasts you may not have considered before. I've recorded the specific podcast episodes in the show notes for your learning convenience. Please subscribe so you don't miss any of my upcoming episodes. And if you enjoy this podcast and its format, share it with someone else. Tweet about your experience or give it a review on Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to podcasts. Fresh Air at 5 can also be found on Voice Ed Radio. Your voice is right here, and on the Education Podcast Network, podcasts for educators, podcasts by educators. I hope you have a fantastic day and get some fresh air before the day is out, and take care of yourself because you're worth it.